Welcome to the Product AI Tools panel, September 2025. I said this earlier, I'll say it on recording. I am extremely excited for this roundtable. The most excited? The most excited? Can I say that? I shouldn't say that, but very, very, very excited about this. And we have some amazing, amazing people to join us. This is part of, or an extension of the AI tools report we wrote. That said, we're not going to spend a ton of time of it, or at least I hope we're not, because we have just these amazing panelists, and that's who I want to listen to and learn from. If you want to have the AI tools information, just DM me. We'll send it to you so you'll get caught up. But we have time at the end. We'll send out the presentation. We'll send out the recording. So don't worry. But I want to learn from these great people. This roundtable is sponsored by Stash. Stash will help grow your D2C revenue. Obviously, D2C is besides maybe AI, but I actually would say it's bigger than AI currently. The biggest thing in mobile gaming right now, super important for profit margins. Profit margins allow companies to innovate. Innovation is going to go a lot to AI. So this is actually really important for the future of how the future of AI and how we have, you know, companies have money to invest in innovation. So really important stuff here. Great people at Stash. So if you're interested in web stores or other things, give them a holler and we'll introduce you. All right, meet the panelists. Great panelists. You guys want to do a quick intro because we've already taken too much time and I want to jump into it and we're going to send out your LinkedIn profile, but Yurin, you want to kick things off and then we'll go down the line?
Sure, sure. So first, thanks for having me. A little bit about me. So I've been working in Playtika in Slotomania for about 2 years. I've been a product manager also in other industry. I use AI across the day in product work, for example, in turning specs into Jiras to make stuff faster, and also like to build lightweight feature design tools and stuff that could help us to predict and plan game design in a better way. Other than even in the gaming, I'm very excited about AI. Like I'm checking the different tools and stuff. So thrilled to hear about it and more from the rest.
Hi, my name is Oren Debbie. I'm VP AI, I can call it, in SciPlay. I came from product, did product for a long time. And in the past, from the beginning of this year, I've started to centralize all the AI initiatives in SciPlay, cross company. So I'm learning new solutions outside or capabilities and implement them internally in different domains, QA, art, development, etc.
And quick question before we go on, like, because your profile was one of the first to pop up that I saw AI in the title at a big company. Was that something that you led internally, or was that something that they said, "Hey, we need an AI lead"?
So it was kind of a combination. I finished some role that I did it previously, and the company thought about AI and like stars met.
And you raised your hand. You're in. Was
Yeah.
that the same at Playtika?
Yeah, probably the same. Like I was promoted as an expert in Slotomania to lead AI tools for PMs. So within that, I've grew into that role.
Awesome. Yeah, because it's kind of interesting how these roles are starting to pop up on LinkedIn a lot more, which is super cool. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry also for contributing to that, but we see more and more companies taking like centralized role and executive sponsorship towards AI, because I think it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. So we're already jumping ahead. We haven't even introduced everyone. Sorry.
Okay.
Andre.
Hey, Hey, I'm Andre. So I'm the, let's call it AI BD lead for games at AWS. So I come from industry. I worked in games since about 2004 through large and small companies. And I've been at AWS since 2022. My day to day is helping customers, game studios find their way with AI, helping them, figure out how to use it, what to use it for, and just, help them find their way.
Awesome. We're happy to have you here. That was a pretty awesome list of people. All right. We're gonna get into discussion points, but really we can go kind of everywhere, but AI specific. Let's just kick things off from where has AI actually made your team faster, more efficient? And obviously we wrote a report on this, but who wants to kick it off this morning or this afternoon for two of you this evening?
I can start with this one. So I think personally for us, AI helps us to get things faster. As mentioned, I think at least 2 or 3 times faster in doing product management work, getting stuff from PRD, Jira's, like a lot faster. It helps us in ideation and also in creating like a lightweight product design or simulators that helps us like to understand how the volatility is gonna look like for the player, to give us like some maybe draft for economy at the beginning and understanding faster and easier how we can plan and design the feature in a better way for the players.
So kind of the initial product design process across a bunch of different areas. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, we are, at least for my end, I'm trying to find the specific flows for product manager where we can accelerate and find the edge or a way for us to move faster and be more to cover more. It could be like in a template wise, some GPTs or stuff that could help them to move faster in the implementation and execution of a product lifecycle.
Awesome. Is there one, like, is there the most impactful thing you've seen?
Like where it impacts the most.
Yeah, where it's made the team better or replaced something.
It's still early, but as I see it, I think like creating the Jiras and specification has been like the fastest or most impactful from our end.
The Jiras.
Yeah,
And Jira is the ticket or the spec?
yeah, it's the specs that are going into specific Jiras for the R&D teams and like to build the entire dev plan together.
So basically the product spec process, and then yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Something unique that I think that we did not have before is the option with vibe coding to create like a lightweight apps that allow us without a like very high technical knowledge to create like some lightweight apps that internally assist us in creating better game design or planning how we are working with the features internally.
And are the apps standalone games? Like this is game iteration, or is it the
Oh,
like
no, they are
it? No.
internal tools that helps us like to look top down at how the economy would look like for the player, so we can design the different volatility across the features.
Wow.
I can jump in. I see a lot of those patterns in the industry. um, Anything that comes to language, right? So a lot of the work that game developers do is, yes, there's the creative aspects, but a lot of it is just communication through language. You mentioned Jira's, it's a great example, right? You end up with a large volume of information in many Jira's, and somebody needs to understand what it all means and prioritize. And we definitely see AI being helpful there. And just overall in the product management process in particular, right? There's you have to communicate to engineers, you have to move data around. You have to understand what the data means. And there are, to your point, very kind of like self-enabling tools that I guess AI also enables you to build. So like I've done that. I needed something, I just built it, vibe coded it for the purposes that I needed that day. Not a complete software, but it got me. I can think algorithmically. I can build a tool, use it, and move on. And I feel that has been really empowering and really accelerating. And I see a lot of that in the industry.
Yeah, it's incredible in communication. Two things. Like one, was communicating with somebody whose language isn't English, and we were just communicating over email and negotiating something. And now his English and writing is perfect, right? And then not only that, on my side, my writing style's always interpreted as been too intense, right? It's like very short and abrupt, and it's I'm not intending it to be, but that's how I write. I now put it in and it's smooth and like the emotions and the intent. I often tell my buddies, I shouldn't say it, that it's great with communicating with your wife. I'm just throwing it out there on a non gaming specific, but now when I want to express my feelings, it comes across accurately for the first time in over a decade. So it's really amazing in terms of communication. So I completely agree. And then across like obviously disciplines going back to like applicable in gaming, but um, yeah.
I
All
think
right.
one areas just to add that I think that also helps us as PMs is creating wiki pages and knowledge centers much easier for
Mm,
the different features. Something that is usually like a more difficult to get in to cover everything. So I see this also as something that the AI is impacting nicely by creating wikis that are rich and they are very organized. They cover like everything we need. They help us to understand stuff in an easier way and to create handover documents in case we need them.
this is for the players or for yourself?
Oh, this is internal.
Internal.
Internal. Yeah.
A wiki that would explain the feature of how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And that extends into like service providers, right? So think about the industry is heavy and various SDKs you have to integrate. All of those can really benefit from kind of like agentic, help me integrate this thing as opposed to, let me read pages and pages of
Mm.
documentation.
Yeah, I was working on a website for something around AI, and I was like, well, why does it even have any content? I was like, why doesn't it just have like an input? It's like, what do you want to know? We'll just
Right.
tell you, you know? I mean, why have like all that? Yeah. Anyways, um, Oren, do you want to add anything or?
Yeah, so we actually started from the art discipline, so we gained a lot of progress there,
From
which
the
is
what discipline?
art, art assets, design.
Oh, art. All right, sorry. All right, the mice. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So we mainly see the advantages using let's call it monetization or live ops art, something that is pretty disposable. It doesn't stay a lot in the game because there are still IP issues around that, so it's not clear if you're creating something with AI, do you own the copyrights or not? So if it's something significant in the game, we still do it by hand. But if all the live ops is being done by AI, mostly by AI, and then changed a bit by a human, but it saves a ton of time.
Mm.
Also, in terms of video creation, like stuff that were highly expensive in the past that we didn't even tried to create, it's amazing what can be done today in this era.
Mm. Yeah, which
And
brings up, oh, sorry, go ahead. Any more?
no, it's on top of that, we are experimenting on other stuff, for developers and for QA. Um, we're still exploring that, but we have some nice findings from it. I mainly discovered that if you are not doing close training with people for any product, then it will not succeed. Like even the simplest one, even if you take ChatGPT, if you will not do proper training for people, the adoption rate will not be so high.
People are becoming the limiting factor. I find that my own thing. It's like now it's like reading, like ingesting the information is like my limiting factor now, right? Well, you bring up
A huge change. It's not a
what?
simple. It's a huge change in the industry. It's not a simple change, and people are always the limiting factor on changes, and this is like it's not a simple one.
Hmm. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting for a public company like yours. Not that this is necessarily yours, but I run a private company, very different size, obviously. But having a private company, you can force change very quickly. It's partly why I structure my company this way because I own 100% of it. I have no investors. If I want to have everyone use ChatGPT tomorrow, they will. Whereas a company like yours, obviously much bigger, a lot of stakeholders and things like that. Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting human capital challenge. Um, which brings me, like you brought it up, Erin. Like what do you guys think are like the biggest like risks? You brought up IP. What do you see as those things you're still like, okay, this is a risk. We got to be aware of it. I mean, in addition to
Uh,
IP.
In addition to IP, I think this is like the human factor. It's the second one, the adoption of these products, and also in terms of information security, like our data is going somewhere to train some kind of model that, we have the proper agreements and we think that we know what it does, but it's not necessarily, no. I'm putting my doubts here. So you don't necessarily know what happens with it, what will happen with it in the future. So I think it's a risk that everybody's taking, but it's a calculated one. Like we don't have any choice. Like you don't want to be behind the industry on that.
Yeah, there's a risk of not doing anything, right?
Yes.
There's a risk of sitting and being safe.
Yeah, yes.
I think maybe on that there's a certain it's not so much a risk of using AI as just you mentioned earlier training. Like there are factors that help people find their way with AI to find things that work and make sense to them. And trust is a big factor, right? If you're not sure, or if people on your team are not sure where the data is going and what's happening with it, that's they're not likely to invest all they would in the product or in the workflow you're trying to set up. And we see, I mean, what we see is solutions to that being like, let's think about like what we're as a company for each customer, what we're okay and not okay doing. Like let's just set some ground rules, right? Like which models are we okay using, which models are we not okay using. Let's govern the options here and give people kind of like a trusted, safe space where they can experiment with AI, so they don't have to like invent their way to just doing a POC. Right? Give them a safe space where they can experiment, they can build trust by using, and then they can actually self-improve, right? Like they can help themselves build tools and etc. It sort of becomes a wheel. So where I'm going with this is like there's a risk of uh, onboarding AI incorrectly and having a bad experience, and then burning the sort of the trust that you were looking to build. But there's also ways to do this well.
And Andre, before we go on, like how is AWS working with developers with AI? Just I'm kind of curious.
Sure. In broad strokes, so let's say I'm in a position where I kind of talk to the customer, figure out what they're trying to do, and then translate the variety of services that AWS offers to like a solution for the customer, some recommendations. But basically, you can run any number of models on AWS. I think we're up to over 200 on Bedrock. And so, open source, closed source, etc. So you have a place, I mentioned the safe space to use AI. Bedrock is kind of that. You get to choose which models your account is allowed and not allowed to use, and you get to build the sort of the supporting framework, right? So let's say you want a RAG database, great, yeah, that's a few checkboxes and kind of a click workflow. So we help people get past that initial step of, hey, how do I actually do a thing, right? Once they're able to access whatever models they choose and are able to do something with it, then we kind of continue down the line of like, all right, well, now you want this to be a production workflow. You can continue with what you built. Maybe that's fine. Maybe you want some extra layers, and of course, Bedrock is the sort of the service where you don't have to stand up infrastructure, you don't have to solve any of those problems, you just use. But there are ways to use the sort of like you can provision compute and manage it yourself through SageMaker, through EC2. So there's layers to the implementation, but fundamentally we work backwards from what you're trying to accomplish and kind of help people find their way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. All right, well, that was an impromptu question, so I'm gonna move on. Although, like I said, we don't really need to follow questions. There's so much to talk about here, but the next one is kind of an interesting one. We said six. What emerging capabilities are you really excited about? We said 6 to 12 months. It's probably like 6 to 12 weeks from now, because things are because it's like. But yeah, what are you really excited about? What do you see happening in the next year?
So I think that today we still have some doubts about how to use with AI. Like we want human in the loop, and we're doing stuff like more carefully and taking risks. I think in the future, like as we work with it more and more, and we understand how it works, what we can, what we cannot. So I expect that AI would really become some co-pilot for us as a tool that we work on the day to day and will save or take some of the tasks that we used to do in the ongoing, like without having to be like on top of it each and every time. But maybe on specific areas, we'll still have human in the loop to cover and go through like the outcome that we're getting.
Yeah, I always would like a little bit more of like a confidence interval around the information so that you could have a human review it or automatic trigger or something like that, right? Um, anyways, yeah.
I think that at some point, currently most of the usages are like a copilot, how we are using it, because we're using it mostly as an assistant. But I think like a year from now, it will be like more like an engine that's responsible for personalization in real time. In the game, like I haven't heard about implementations inside the game yet, at least in our industry. Um, so I think that we will reach that. And another approach will be like automation at scale of processes.
What do you
That's
mean by that?
because it's today most of the uses that you have with AI is helping people to do what they do better. It's not a fundamental change that changes how we do things. It's like if you want to do it, you like need to take a certain process and rethink completely how you will structure it, like you had AI from the beginning.
Mm. Yeah,
Right.
sort of like when games were ported from web to mobile, there were some companies that just took it and slapped it on mobile, and there were other companies that built for mobile first. It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Like Gmail or email or whatever email provider you think about, right? That was built under the idea that we were typing everything and not didn't have AI, right? And it's it's fragmented in its interaction, at least currently, with the email, the knowledge, the tool. But if you thought about that right now, what would you create?
Yeah, so Andre asked here a great question, and I think at some point it will. Like at some point it will prove himself. And if we will have an autonomous cars everywhere, then live ops can be done. But I understand the question. It's like managing the income of companies. It's some critical thing to hand over to AI, but I think at some point it will be an integral part of us using it. I don't see any other choice.
And there's a bit of a continuum here, right? Like we already use AI, not necessarily generative, but we use ML for segmentation, for experimentation. Like these functions are already part of running live ops, at least in some companies. So there's kind of a continuum of like, well, what do you mean by AI? What are the emerging capabilities there? Because our abilities to have machines kind of solve find opportunities in a very large set of players at a scale that like a human team couldn't keep up with at any scale. I think is really the thing that gets me excited, but also now you have this generative kind of communication layer where you don't have to necessarily be how do I say this? You don't have to manage the ML. You don't have to be so much in the weeds. You can have agents that do a lot of the translation for you, right? So as a product manager, you can say like, what is our calendar for next 3 months? Okay, here's the calendar. Okay, cool. Well, actually, I want to move these two things around. Okay, great. Like it's a facilitation without taking the decision-making power away from you, while still using the other types of AI under the hood.
Yeah, so it's setting up the calendar, it's controlling the live ops. Today you have ML, but at least the ML is driving segmentation. It's and if we go to micro segments or to even like one player segment, and like complete personalization, it's impossible to manage it today, because human cannot handle it. So maybe at some point we will use AI for it, and we'll have people control what it does. So again, we didn't anticipate it to do what it's doing today, last year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year it will do that. I don't see it in the near horizon. Like it's not something that we are experimenting with or even imagine that it can do right now. But the way that it's evolving, I think it's an appealing direction that we will go to as an industry.
Well,
You mentioned in-game.
well,
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you're on that point, it's a little bit connected to it, so go ahead.
I was going to jump. Oren, you mentioned in-game AI. I wanted to jump in on that because it's an extension of at a certain point of live ops. But I don't want to derail the track here. So Brett, if you want to continue the topic, go for it.
Well, I built something that wasn't I mean, it was a predictive model, and this was like a decade ago, maybe more, in Singapore. And it was built basically it would take all the actions a player had done in the last 3 months and then predicted their likelihood to spend or share, and then it would change the marketing based on that likelihood to do it. 30% sharing, 70% monetization, 90-10 or whatever. And then it did another one on real time. They were very impactful, awesome features, and they were I was very proud of them. The thing that probably was the hardest part about it is after we turned them on, which we saw very positive results, we were somewhat in the dark into what was happening with them on a daily basis. And now again, this was a decade ago, but as you unlock and give the live ops and things like that to AI to do, like, do you see that as a problem where you're just like you don't really know what is going on, or do you have tools to be able to track that?
You mean in terms of how the personalization would work on the player?
Yeah, I mean, if you turn on, let's say, AI in the game, which I'm sure a lot of people have, and it's doing personalization or it's it has a narrative that it's telling or storyline or whatever. Like you don't, and you're doing that on a scale of 1 million users daily, right? Like you basically don't really, how are you going to track that? How are you going to have any insight into what is actually happening? Because there's now 1 million unique games that you have, right? Every single game,
Usually they are being like cohorted to groups with like similar behaviors.
so you'd have because you're essentially you could have 1 million unique games under one title, right? And I guess you could group it into but their narratives could be all completely different. Their their first experience could be all different. Their economy could be all different. You would really have no insight into your game,
You're totally
because
right. But with your question, this is why it's not solved these days.
Yeah.
This is exactly the pain. Like this is why it will not be solved now. But again, maybe in 12 months from now, we will be able to answer it easily.
how would
So
you answer that easily?
Imagine like as a player, you are seeking for more and more personalized experience, right? You're
Hmm.
being used to being treated personally in every platform and every game that you are using, right?
Hmm.
So you will just seek this experience and it will just be increased. Again, it's like I'm saying a fantasy here because it's like you asked for a year from now.
I think we are not too far.
Yes.
Yeah, it just takes away the capability of doing any A/B testing and things like that, right? Because I'm saying on the extreme, right? I mean, if there's minor tweaks to different groups, you have 5 different groups experiencing different things. But if you take it to the extreme, and every single person has a completely unique game, and completely unique live ops, completely unique economy, then you don't have a data set to even understand how it's performing relative to something else. And you take that extreme, your games are just going from like into an RPG into a casual or whatever it is. And and then my point is like we did it, and it gets to a point where you basically like you lose control of it because you really can't turn it back, right? Like, how do you like go back to something? And if a bunch of people drop out, well, you really don't even know why they would dropped out or anything because they had like a completely unique experience.
Mhm.
I'm pro AI. I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying
Next
to be a
time,
hater.
next time you should ask for next week and not for next year.
Yeah.
But well, I
Uh,
mean, the problem you're describing, Brett, is like experiment setup and also the sort of the result gathering, right? So I don't see a reason why I couldn't, properly configured couldn't help you both keep the experiments under control, but also give you visibility into what they're actually accomplishing and sort of, right? Like there's definitely like analytics capacity problem there where like, yeah, it's impossible for any size analytics team to keep up with microsegments for the same reasons that it's impossible to set them up with it, right? It's just too much to watch all at the same time. But if you can have machines do it for you and direct the machines, but I don't see why that wouldn't be possible in 6 to 12 as we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think that currently, like doing it is specifically in areas of, for example, like a bonus game or specific offer that comes up for the player at the right time with the right incentive is something reasonable, and we're already already there. But taking the narrative into several funnels, as you mentioned, for each specific user, this one sounds like too complex. I think for now, but as Oren mentioned, like in a year we might be there already.
yeah. Okay. I'm not getting us through any of the questions. I hope you don't mind. Does anyone mind? I'll move on. Like, how do you decide on certain AI tools, or in your case, Andre, I mean, it sounds like you get input from the developers, but How are you vetting those things? Like, again, this kind of becomes a limiting factor.
Um, so, first of all, I'm searching for a real problem. So if I have a need for something and I have a committed stakeholder that will take it forward in the organization, this is the point where I start the investigation to come up with the different solution. Then we evaluate the different vendors and we choose them according to integration ease and speed, ability to see data, uplift for KPIs. This is like the high level process that we are taking with the tools.
I mean, I'll share what we see, right? The top, let's say, criteria that the customers ask about are, like, and Warren, you alluded to this earlier, security, privacy, right? Before we even get into like what the thing does, can I trust it? So that's a criteria. And I'm happy to say that we address that. But after that, it's use case fit, right? There's so much stuff coming up. Like there are new tools and new products being built over time. So it's a little bit like try, see what it gets you, experiment and just be in the ecosystem. Because there's a lot that technology can do, but the real value is in like adapting the technology to what you're actually trying to do in your company, your culture. And so that the fit, the closest fit is kind of the other criteria. Customizability, I would say as well, right? There are if we talk about it, generative models, some are fine-tunable, some are not. I think for games being not a real world scenario in most cases, being able to tune to how the game world works and the things that exist there that don't exist in the real world is a key feature.
Yeah. How that's an interesting point you brought up about games. Like, how unique do you think the games industry is? Because we have low risk. The data is valuable to gaming companies, but it's not like financial data of a user, right? It's not, relatively speaking, in other industries, not probably the most, well, it's important. It's important information, but not as, important as like my passport or, social security number, right? And it has tons of data and tons of users. I guess this isn't a question for you guys since you're all in games, but it seems
Yeah,
like
but
some of this
no,
is kind of unique to gaming.
we have PII data. So we have some regulatory guidelines that we need to follow. And also the data of our players is something that for the company itself, it's priceless. If you will take the database of like all the top players of a company, even if you know
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a sensitive data.
Well, it's priceless to you, but I'm saying if that data were to go, if that was to get released, right, that so and so was the payer, that's not as impactful as if you put in my financial data as a person and then that got released, is my point. But it is valid.
For the for
I
the
think
for the
I
business,
think the customers, yeah. I think the customer's trust is the more important element there, right? Like no matter what, you want to make sure that that's preserved.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And what skills and roles are becoming more important and maybe what are becoming less important as you integrate AI into your teams?
so as I see it, I think I mentioned it earlier, like at least for PMs, they are like more in the orchestrating of the entire project and moving stuff around and typing and creating stuff that are more tedious. So I think in terms of skills, what is needed more is like to be able to prompt properly, like to know to ask the right questions, to think about a quick A/B test, and maybe to have like some templates of processes that will optimize the ongoing work of a product manager. like to create like some automation fluency or ways to use these tools in the right way.
And do you think you have to have lived in the pre-AI world to have those skills, or do you think you can attain them if you were to start as a PM with those tools right now?
I think you can start straight into them, like as you mentioned about the kids. So today they are going into it, and like in a year they would like be much faster than us in implementing this AI in different areas of their life, as I see it.
Yeah, so I think, we will see more and more growing AI-powered role. So AI-powered PM, AI-powered developer, AI-powered art. It will be like it's everywhere. I think that new roles, we haven't yet hired people like this, but I'm hearing it in the industry. So AI engineers, um, prompt engineers,
Hmm.
something I hear more and more about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Within our company, like we understand that we need champions, like people to lead the adoption for tools within each role. And in terms of skill set, I think that people that has a more exploitation mindset are doing the shift before others and helps for the shift to happen.
The skill of learning new skills. You have learning agility on there, right? Like
Yeah,
it's never
yeah,
been easier.
Yeah.
yeah, and
What's
you,
what's been interesting for me because of the way that I have one of those brains that like it has a hard time being precise on things, but can be like can understand concepts. So, I did fine in school, but it certainly harder for me to get like to that A plus level. I mean, AI basically like cures that, right? Like you write anything and it just cleans up that like last little bit. So it's kind of interesting, like looking at the academic system and how that's going to feed into all this, which is a whole different question. Um,
I think
but
it means more and more to teaching you how to teach yourself, like how to learn, rather than memorize things. I don't think that they did this shift yet, but I think that some teachers are doing it these days. But I think like the capability of learning, no matter what you are learning, is like highly important, highly critical, and it proves itself these days.
Yeah, also we can see more and more tools that help you with it, like a mind map, quizzes, podcast, like different tools with AI that lets you like learn stuff and study in different interactive ways.
Yeah,
yeah,
but like if
it's
you
a
don't have the capability of learning new stuff and you don't have the skill, then you're not able to use these tools at all.
Yeah.
Well, I'll counter that with AI is actually able to convince you to have those skills. I gave it to my 8-year-old who didn't want to do homework, and before it even started teaching him, it convinced him to start his homework. He didn't even want to do his homework, and then it said, "How about we do this? Do 5 minutes, and if you're too tired to continue, you can stop." And he was refusing to do homework, and then he's like, okay, I'll start for 5 minutes. That's fine. Of course, once he started, he ended up finishing the entire homework. So AI not only taught him the homework after he started, but convinced him to start. So it's sort of like even that can be kind of solved. And then tricks too. Like I put in for my oldest, like, hey, what are some certain things that I should do to get straight A's? And one of the things was like email your teachers questions so that it looks like you're interested in the class. And then asked it, and then I told him, well, then ask it what to write, and then of course it wrote it for him, and then he just like fired it off to his teacher. And then my wife found out about it, and she was like, what are you doing to our children?" I was like, getting them A's. It's
Right.
interesting because she's like a straight A valedictorian, type mind. Well, she was a valedictorian with, type, and I was not, and we sort of have like I used like tricks, and so we have like these different paths. We got to similar places, but I was always thinking of tricks again because I had some learning disabilities and some like minor dyslexia and things like that. So I was always like, oh, what's the latest trick to like get through this process? And that type of mindset, which is often an entrepreneurial, like you see a lot of entrepreneurs who have dyslexia or learning disabilities and things like that. I think partly because they figured out early on that they can't just go like through life this normal path. They have to figure out how to like I guess teach yourself, but I think it's more of like learn a different way of achieving a goal than other people. That mindset, that skill, I think is what's going to be like what's going to be more and more important for people to figure out because they're going to be able like, well, how do I piece together these agents or these tools or whatever that's like a unique way to solve this problem.
This has been a super interesting, I would say a substream of like accessibility applications of AI, including like for gameplay, right? So if you have folks who, for whatever reason, are struggling with a game or there's something they can't get past, or there's reasons people can't enjoy games the same as others, and AI can totally help with that. If it's like any other skill, right? Gameplay is you learn it. People learn differently. People need different configurations and things like that. And in the olden days, that would be a significant project to accommodate everyone. Now you can kind of give this like open language, natural language interface and just be like, here's a goal, as you say, right? Like go reach this rank or beat this mission, or set your own goal, and the AI will help you get there.
Yeah.
In your own terms.
And we kind of touched on this question, but I think it is really important. So maybe some like very tactical answers to it is like, how do you structure your teams? How do you get people to adopt this, right? How do we get over the fears, the process? I actually find this to be one of the hardest things as a business owner to do. I have to be very top down for people to change their process because they're getting paid to do the exact same things that they did yesterday, right? So there's like not a lot of incentive for them to go, oh, okay, let me change my process. There's a lot of fear around that. Or you're replacing me. Um, yeah, so this is hard. This is the hard part of it. Any thoughts here? I think
Yeah,
Andre.
I sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Arun.
No, I didn't. Yarin, go ahead.
You're in?
Yeah,
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
I see it mainly as like more educating them more than like automating their work. Like at least in the beginning, try to give them like some added value or way that will enrich them and make them like feel that they have like another way, and to give them like an opt-in template, so prompt or stuff that they could use or utilize for their own as another tool in the toolkit that they have to finish a certain task. Once they see that this works for them, I believe like the spark is there. So I'm trying to get into there, to that place, to provide them the tool that they will see themselves that are making the change and making the work easier.
So I see a lot of this as like this is my favorite topic, because
Oh, wow.
we've kind of
I want to
because
do a
it's
separate one. I want to do a separate one with you because this is like the biggest problem, I think, right? I mean,
right, but we can learn, right? Like we have prior examples of transformational technology. Some years ago, IT became a thing, and we built IT departments who both understood how to use computers, but also what they could be useful for, and trained people. Oren, you brought up training. It's a huge factor, right? So, what sort of the recommendation that I've been making is like, the thing you don't want is everybody's kind of experimenting and trying stuff, and it doesn't really bubble up to like accepted production level workflows. What you want is a little bit of governance. We talked about like a safe space for the technological safe space, but also like a multifunctional team that kind of governs how you make these decisions, right? So, and it's not just you know, the AI people, whatever that means in your company. But it's the end users. It's some representation from, you know, your dev teams, from your live ops teams, from the players, you know, from HR, whatever cross-functional categories that are going to have a stake in how this technology is used, should get together and agree on, like, you know, who's going to be responsible for deciding what tools we use, who's going to be responsible for their ongoing care and feeding and cost management and like all of the things that come with using technology. How are we going to secure it? How are we going to upgrade it? Because this isn't a one-time thing that happens, you know, and you just leave it, because there are new tools all the time. How do you migrate workflows from one version of the tool to the other? Like any other technology, you kind of have to think through these loops, because if you don't think about them ahead of time, they can derail the projects and break trust and lead to less exciting outcomes. So it's very, you know, as you say, Yaron, like participative, like give people the tools to do this well, govern, but don't impose.
Yeah, I think we need a whole nother podcast on it because this is very interesting. I have a lot of thoughts. I was head of IT for my company for a long time. I guess I still kind of am. And I'm a little old school about this stuff. People are like, well, I like using Slack. I'm like, well, I don't, I don't take your preference very, very much into my consideration about what the company uses. I take into consideration what's best for the company, and I find, like someone wanted PowerPoint. We were using Keynote, which is Apple's version, for a bunch of different reasons. Very good version control and things like that, and collaboration and things. I want to use PowerPoint, and then all of a sudden you have two, and then, that creates issues. And I see that a lot in companies, right? Like, well, we like using, and then the company's sort of flippant about it, and they say, oh, that's fine. But to your point, I don't think that's the right way. That said, I think the right way is more like a military units type way, where you do have certain groups that the governance is stronger, certain groups that the governance may be less. For example, if you have a new app division, right, a new growth division that's operating much more like a small startup, you could be more flexible with them versus like, at SciPlay, for example, when you have established games that are generating massive amounts of money, obviously, Playtika as well. Like those have to have like much stronger governance, right? Which is the Navy SEALs versus like the Marines, if you know how the US military works. So I don't think it's like a one size fits all, but I do think it needs to be much more deliberate, more now than ever, that you have like a system in place, which I don't think a lot of companies do. Um, if anyone wants to add a last little bit about that, I do see the next roundtable on AI though topic already. Any closing thoughts from you guys? Because we are at time, and I want to be conscious of your evenings and days.
Um, I think that on this topic, on top of learning, it's interesting to how to do the next leap. Like, how do you heavily or double down on AI investment to create the next leap in the organization? It's an open question. Not, I don't have like concrete thoughts about how to do it, but I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it was amazing discussion. I wish we could go for a couple more hours, but we'll have another one because, like I said, I really like this. The human problem, the team problem, the people problem, that's definitely got to be one of the next topics. So thank you for joining us, guys. Amazing insights. So excited. Feel so proud to have you on our roundtable about AI with such amazing people and companies. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.